Hello, exiles. Welcome to another video. If you're anything like me, with Keepers of the Flame releasing on October 31st, you're sitting thinking, how the hell do I pick what build to play? And if you're anything like me as well, you wish you could keep up with the big streamers and the big build makers and things like that, but it's always a bit harder than it seems. And so if you're more like the average gamer, well, this video is for you. One of the problems with picking a lot of the builds that come out from all of your big streamers, things like that, when you go through all of this, is that a lot of them, while they are very good builds, they can be really, really tough to actually get through and actually get to a point early on in the league where they are firing. Some are more simple than others, but these are usually streamers and video makers who are playing 18 hours the first day, absolutely blasting, getting ahead of the economy, and they're at a point where it becomes really easy and they can really farm things out right from the get-go. Sometimes in being behind them, you can find yourself looking at situations where the items you need and are looking for are often so expensive by the time you get to that point in the league that progression becomes really, really hard. This is where I found myself on a few occasions trying to follow certain builds. For example, in Mercenaries, and that's why this video is potentially for you if you've ever had this experience. I started off with a Golemancer build, from Arrow, who's a good build maker, makes great ones. I'm actually going to recommend one of his videos here. But I found that because I was a little bit behind by the time I reached towards the end game, and the Elementalists with Golems had gotten all these buffs, a lot of the items I needed were so expensive for progression that I had a really hard time finishing out my 4 stones and progressing. At that point in time, I ended up re-rolling to a less popular Slayer build, climbing all the way up the Atlas, investing a lot of, getting my 4 stones quite easily with a lot of currency, and then even then re-rolled into a more popular build once I was actually able to hit some endgame farms and start things off into a Smite Trickster, who I was able to finish the whole, essentially, league off with and build into near mirror tier items over weeks and weeks and weeks of playing. So if you're like me, sometimes in the beginning of the league, you don't know where to start and what's the best thing to actually do to even get into the place where you can start making currency. Because frankly, and with all the nerfs to currency farming this league, the types of things you can farm in the league are going to be even smaller than ever. And so you're really going to have 2 options. One is blasting, getting to the front of the pack as quickly as possible. And 2 is having a character that's going to allow you to really ride through the league a bit, not be so gear reliant, and be able to make it to having those 4 stone end game farms where you can farm T17 maps, T16 and a half maps, and really do those real end game kinds of farms. Now, every league pretty much tests out all the different run throughs, and this isn't obviously a full list. I've deleted the majority of them through at least a few acts to get an idea of what the early campaign is going to be like. One of the problems in selecting this is, what is your priority really? And this is my suggestion, just for if you're a casual PoE player, if you're a newer PoE player, or you're having trouble figuring out what to pick. Maybe you're not always up to league starting, but this time you want a really good run. Well, it's kind of this simple. If you look for builds on the left side, Hierophants, Inquisitors, Juggernauts, Berserkers, Tricksters, most of the time, these are builds that you can invest and start low, and they will progress through the end game with you. They tend to be able to get up towards higher tier maps without being very gear reliant. They're more tanky. They have the ability to really carry you into that end game. And from there, sometimes it gets tough. Sometimes they don't scale as much as you would like, and they're a bit slow to get off the ground. So they're not the fastest, but you will get to those end game farms. In addition to that, and my favorite pick tends to be the Duelist, because Champion and Slayer just have so many options where you can take it through a decent campaign, well into maps, well into the end game, without really hitting a huge roadblock when it comes to gear or items. And so if you're not at the forefront of the economy, you can farm. Now, The other two options that you really have, of course, are Witch and Deadeye. Now, these are likely going to be, or Ranger rather, these are likely going to be the most popular ascendancies this league, most popular classes because of the Wander Witch and even the Wander Warden or Deadeye at the end of it with some of the upgrades to spells. The problem is a lot of the items are going to be really expensive. These are great farming ones. If you can get to the top of the league first, you can farm Legion and do all of that very quickly, but a lot of those farms fall off really fast. And if you end up behind the curve economically, some of their items are going to get ridiculously expensive. I can tell you in bow leagues and ranger leagues in the past, the bows have gotten to absurd prices to get decent ones that can carry you, and the same will go for wands and a lot of those types of items, especially with so many streamers playing them. So the choice you really have here is an easier start in the campaign where you can really blast, and if you think you can keep up, then one of these is likely going to work for you. But if you think you're going to be a bit slower to get through the beginning axe maps, I would go with one of the tankier classes. Specifically, I would say Slayer or Hierophant have so many good builds. Now, if you're doing minions or something, I haven't done a lot of that. You could probably get away with that on a Witch minion build and go in a normal way. So just to make a few suggestions, if you're having any trouble deciding, I think really make an honest assessment of where you fall. And if you decide, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to be the fastest. There's some really good builds that I would suggest for this. Like I mentioned last time, the Smite Slayer. This one was really good, going from 0 to hero. If you want to go bows and race through the campaign really fast, this is a good one. You can also then re-roll it into the Ice Shot of Penetration, which is one I really like and does scale up a bit better and usually doesn't have crazy cost. If you want to go wanders, you can look at all of these, but like I said, it's a lot of testing for people. If you're newer, it might be harder than you think. And otherwise, find some builds. Totem Hierophants, Energy Blade Inquisitors. These ones can be complicated if you don't understand Energy Blades, but I would really suggest something like a Smite Slayer, which will still be very, very good this league, would be good options for you. And that's the only suggestions I can make. Hopefully you find it helpful, but yes, I would really, if you are having trouble selecting and you don't think you're going to be fast, focus on this left side or a Slayer, and you'll probably have the most luck. But if you think you can keep up, if you think you can, only then would I really choose one of these, or it can get really difficult and you can find yourself re-rolling a lot sooner than you thought, especially if you don't like dying, as they're also very squishy classes, which is why they tend to be so gear dependent, because you need that damage to be quite high. I will be starting off on the league start with everybody else, and if you want to follow, just starting off on the Twitch career. So yeah, make sure you can head over and follow there if you want to hang out with more average Path of Exile player and community growing, and I'll hope to see you there. Hope you found this video useful and informative, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you.